Hi, and welcome to the Diamond Report for Sunday, May 28th, 2017. This is your host, Doug Diamond. It's currently 9:40 p.m. and we're looking at the earthquake 3D feed, last 48 hours of earthquakes globally. I guess you can tell my voice seems to be back to normal, at least probably 95% or so. Of course, it's never all that great, you know, it's just more of a utilitarian type of thing, I guess. But anyways, you have to laugh at yourself sometimes, but at least it feels pretty normal again, no matter how it sounds to some people. I did have one person comment one time telling me that my voice sounded like someone scratching their fingernails across a chalkboard. So I guess that was kind of a meant to be as a derogatory thing. I took it as a compliment. Anyway, so just to recap, I had lost my voice for about 3 days there, and if you missed some of the Diamond Reports during those days, my voice sounded really funny. I don't really feel 100% as far as my voice goes. I never did feel sick, but there was one show in there that I did where I whispered through the whole show. So if you get a few minutes and you can go back to the Friday the 26th show, I whispered the whole 20-some minutes, and it ended up being kind of funny to me. I don't know if anybody else thought it was. Anyways, when I get sick these days, I tend to just lose my voice, and that's about the extent of it. Part of it is I try and eat okay. You know, I try and eat fairly healthy. I don't do nearly as well as I should. But I do take some important supplements each day, and I think that's really helped me get over things quickly, and it's helped me in the recovery process as well. After my car accident last year, where I had to make the best effort that I could in order to heal quickly, because I had 2 major surgeries and a lot of scrapes and gashes and you know, fractured bones and all kinds of stuff. So I tried to you know, eat a little bit better and take supplements, and all of that has helped for sure. Plus, just hanging out with Richard Sachs on Lost Arts Radio, it's hard to eat much of anything and not feel guilty about it, because he's a raw vegan plus raw milk, which makes him an outcast actually in the vegan community. However, he's doing it right as far as what he's intaking each day, and for a man who is, I think, around 65 or so, he looks like he's about 50-something, you know, 50 or 55. So he does not look his age. He seems to have found the fountain of youth, I guess. But a lot of it is treating your food as your medicine. So as far as me, the supplements that I take each day, I take InfoWars. Oh, and I've got the shirt on. See, InfoWars. For all you Alex Jones haters out there, I've got the shirt, so now you can hate me extra more. I take the InfoWars Fusion vitamin and mineral blend. I drink that every day, and I mix in about 2 teaspoons worth of Dr. Rima's Nano Silver, which is a kind of like, it's sort of like colloidal silver. I mix that into the Fusion, drink that, and then I also take extra vitamin D, which I think goes a long way towards staying healthy. And then I take X2, which is a iodine, nascent iodine, and then what else do I take? Several other things, but anyway, that's kind of the main stuff. Oh yeah, vitamin B12. I take a B12 supplement as well, so it all adds up, and I stay fairly healthy, luckily. So, anyways, that's kind of a sidebar. I didn't mean to get off on that. Anyway, we're looking at earthquake 3D, last 48 hours worth of earthquakes, and as you can see, hopefully, we've had some trouble in the last few days having these earthquakes showing up on my map here that weren't actually real earthquakes. They were all across northern Africa, and then there was a big one down here to the west of Angola, which is this little country right there. It's actually probably a pretty big country, but it was right here, and all of those have now dropped off my map. So I guess the Bahrain Earthquake Reporting Center has either fixed what they were doing, or it just dropped off my map for some other reason, but at least it did go away. I didn't do anything to fix it. If I go back to the last 7 days worth of earthquakes instead of the last 2, you can see that those earthquakes are totally gone. So they left the feed somehow. Luckily those are off here, because I don't want errors on my screen, obviously. Then I tell you guys, or potentially could tell you guys the wrong things, which I don't want to do. We do have a new magnitude 5.0 on the north end of Sumatra right here. That's a new one. And then we've got some, I guess, upper 4s near Taiwan. A series of those. I'm going to turn the rings down just so I can see a little better. And then also on Japan and south and east of Japan out here, getting toward Guam. More quakes there, and then lots of 4s and 5s in the Aleutian Island chain near Alaska. So we've got quite a few quakes going on up there. And if you've watched any of my earthquake updates before, and I get my information from Dutch Sense, who I think is the best person out there to listen to as far as earthquakes go. I'm just kind of copycatting what he does. I'm fully giving credit to him. I didn't discover any of this stuff, but if you want to know about earthquakes, watch him over on YouTube. And he's also on Twitch, because YouTube has given him so many problems. But anyway, what happens is you'll have a large or semi-large earthquake, a deep earthquake, or a series of them happening out here in the West Pacific, and that will translate to shallow, larger movement in other places. So if you are kind of paying attention to what happens and when, it's pretty easy to forecast when the next quake will happen and where, as far as in an adjacent silent zone, due to the way the pressure moves around the planet in a natural progression. Now, that does not account for tectonic weapons and HARP and things like that that can exaggerate what's already going on. So there's no way really to predict that. I mean, who knows? It could be anytime, anywhere, really. But for the most part, earthquakes progress around the planet in a pretty predictable fashion. And if you're paying attention, it's pretty easy to tell what's going to happen and when. And Dutch does an excellent job of that. I'm still learning. I'm probably in the 80-some% accuracy, whereas he's probably more in the 90-some% accuracy. But he does it for his living now, and I'm just doing it on these earthquake updates and as part of the Diamond Report because I enjoy it, and hopefully people learn a little bit and get something out of it. Anyways, you know, you'll have some deep movement usually in the West Pacific, and that will filter around the Ring of Fire and go up, you know, through Indonesia and Japan and the Aleutian Islands, and then make its way down to the west coast of the United States. And at the same time, you can have the same movement over here in the West Pacific pretty much shoot straight east and hit South America, usually around Chile or Peru or Ecuador, somewhere around there. So pressure will release going that way. And at the same time, pressure can release going westward from the West Pacific across Indonesia, across Asia, and also across the Middle East and into Europe. So that's kind of how it filters. It generally goes both directions, but it usually starts in the West Pacific. That's why that's the key place to watch, and that's why I kind of always start there. Look at this huge stack of 2s. That is, where is that? That's in Turkey. Had a lot of movement in Turkey lately. I think the earthquake bureaus in Turkey do a really good job of reporting what's going on. Big stack, big swarm of 2s and 3s, mostly 2s, and then also in Italy, which that's also something that always happens. Very common these days, at least. And usually as well in New Zealand. And we've got a magnitude 5, a very deep magnitude 5 near New Zealand. So that's something else we'll have to keep an eye on. That's a little bit unusual to have a deep magnitude 5 that close to New Zealand. Usually they're up here. And this, what we're seeing is a silent zone now. This is Fiji right here. So usually it's more up in this area. And this particular one's pretty far down, closer to New Zealand. Anyway, we'll just have to watch and see what happens. But let's move on to the headlines. State Department lifts the limit on refugee admissions. number of refugees entering the U.S. could double as a result of the lifted restrictions. That's on the Hill. My guess is they're doing that around Trump. I don't know that he would sign off on that one. Although, you never know these days. He may very well. It's hard to tell with him. Coptic Christian attack. ISIS claims its soldiers, quote, opened fire on bus, killing 29 in Egypt. And important to remember for Memorial Day, honor those who died for your freedom this Memorial Day weekend. Americans must make sure the future is secure for upcoming generations as our forefathers did for us. I agree with that completely. However, I do not support the military-industrial complex and the perpetual wars that we do find ourselves in. So, I support this. I support our troops no matter what. However, I don't support being on the offense, which is what we usually are as a country. I do support defense, but I don't think we need to have hundreds and hundreds of military bases all across the world in every country practically. I think that's overkill, and that is not what our founding forefathers intended. Bin Laden's son steps into father's shoes as Al-Qaeda attempts a comeback. Well, Al-Qaeda already exists. They just renamed it and call it ISIS. And this says, Osama bin Laden has vowed to seek revenge for his father's death. Well, someone needs to tell him that we didn't kill his father. His father died from a disease, some sort of pancreatic or liver disease, I forget which, at the tail end of 2001, just after the 9/11 attacks, in which he had nothing to do with. He was merely the scapegoat. Someone needs to tell this guy his dad's death had nothing to do with the United States. Yes, we demonized him, but he was already dead. We did not kill him. How Team Obama tried to hack the election. The Obama administration politicized and weaponized intelligence against Americans. Manchester bomber's younger brother was planning an attack on the UN's special envoy to Libya. Hillary says, I beat both of them. Hillary Clinton defiantly claims she defeated Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. I mean, what delusion she is under. She did almost cheat enough to beat Trump. Almost. Like, super close. But it wasn't enough cheating to beat Trump. And she certainly didn't defeat him fairly. I mean, not by any stretch. And she did cheat enough to beat Bernie Sanders. So, she's only half right. She beat Bernie Sanders, yes, but that was only from cheating because he had the millions and millions of voters that she wanted and didn't have, so she had to cheat to beat him. And she tried to cheat to beat Trump, but didn't cheat enough. She's truly delusional. You could pretty much say this headline any single day you want. Looks like the media spread another false story about Trump. New Kushner-Russia story stokes concern of West Wing leakers. I mean, is there any doubt that Kushner is involved? I mean, he took money from George Soros, for Pete's sake. Deputy sheriff among 8 killed in Mississippi shooting. I ain't fit to live, suspect says. Death, suicide by cop was my intention. Now, where did we just hear that? Remember the Times Square guy who was smoking weed and driving down the sidewalk running over people? He was trying to do suicide by cop as well. Senator Tim Kaine's son facing criminal charges. Police eventually had to use chemical spray to bring him down. It's on the Daily Caller. VA's shame continues as probes confirm treatment delays weren't Mickey Mouse problem. New report shows U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is still failing our servicemen and women. That's on Circa. North Korea reveals video of new anti-aircraft weapon test launch. New anti-aircraft defense system aimed at intercepting and destroying enemy drones and rockets. DHS Chief John Kelly says intel leaks borderline, if not over the line, of treason. Sources say 3rd U.S. Naval Strike Force deployed to deter North Korea. The U.S. military has rarely simultaneously deployed 3 aircraft carriers to the same region. laptop ban may extend to flights departing the U.S. Concealed carry soars 214%. Violent crime drops 21%. Trump says privately he will leave the Paris climate agreement. Trump also says many leaks are fabricated lies made up by fake news media. Well, that's true. That's on the Hill. Death toll nears 100 on 6th day of violence in the Philippines. Hayden caught in huge anti-Trump lie concerning Russia. We must expose this dirtbag. According to sources, Sean Hannity set to be fired next week as purge of pro-American media accelerates. Will Seth Rich be Sean Hannity's undoing? Well, it's very possible. Fox News is going far leftist. I mean, they're even below MSNBC for Pete's sake. I wouldn't want to be associated with him if I were Hannity. He can take his brand elsewhere and do much better. But the truth has to be told about what's happened with the murder of Seth Rich. That has to come out. Alex Jones reports Hillary says Trump will be impeached. White House shakeup imminent. The Clintons refuse to go away. Well, that's been the case for a long, long time now. And I do believe that he will be impeached. I don't know when, but I think Hillary will do her best to make sure that happens. Flashback, past presidents and Hillary Clinton all used secret back channels. Back channels not unprecedented, used by past presidents to prevent war. Oh yeah, but it was used by Hillary Clinton to induce war. Shock claims FBI warned UK's security services months ago of Abedi's plot to attack the UK. That's on the Express. Christians and churches warned to be on alert for ISIS attack. That's on the Express as well. I spat in the eye of hate and lived. Surviving train hero tells how he had his throat cut by white supremacists who killed 2 other Good Samaritans as they tried to protect Muslim teen in a hijab. I mentioned that story yesterday. Trump returns and unleashes Tweetstorm. That's on Zero Hedge. And from Dave Hodges, The Secret World of James Comey, the Seth Rich connection. And a major blow for G7 as Trump tells aides he will quit the Paris climate deal. Tragic, but doesn't mean we won't do it. Chilling nuclear threat issued to North Korea. Pentagon in a panic over inability to defend logistics against Russia and China. That's on Sputnik News. Merkel says Europe can no longer rely on the U.S. and Britain. That's also on Sputnik News. Yeah, if she means to do her bidding as far as a globalist, hopefully she's right. Breaking news, explosions heard in Manchester's Moss side as man 25 is arrested 3 miles away over the terror attack. And on Natural News, scientists confirm that slight global warming is greening the Antarctic Peninsula with new life, dramatically boosting ecology. Well, global warming is real, and Al Gore was wrong because what he said wasn't nearly to the level that it really is. Meaning, his numbers were dramatically wrong in the other direction. But for more on global warming, please see geoengineeringwatch.org. There's plenty of evidence there to prove global warming is real. You don't have to call it that. It's kind of got a bad name now using those 2 words together, global warming. It's one of those almost conspiracy type of terms now. However, there is such a thing as planetary warming. Whatever you want to call it, it is happening. It's just that the cool down areas are chemically engineered, and that's what tricks most people into believing that the planet is either cooling or at the very least not warming. So the chemical cool downs are confusing people enough still that they don't believe warming is real, and they refuse to believe it because it's Al Gore out there talking about it. And I hate Al Gore like everybody else does, but that does not mean that warming is not happening. The 10 planks of American socialism. That's on Freedom Outpost. Deep state quietly increases refugee limits. Yeah, as I mentioned, I think they're going around Trump to do that. Hopefully he'll put a stop to it. Farmer charged and fined $2.8 million for plowing his own property in the land of the free. White House petition to investigate Seth Rich murder goes viral as reward tops $345,000. Well, I hope somebody's able to claim that, because I hope they can get to the bottom of what happened to that guy. Because they're going to trace it back to the Hillary Clinton election team. I'm telling you. Podesta and all of them. They were involved in the Seth Rich murder. I just know it. How do I know it? Was I there? No. I know it because I have an innate sense that that's what happened. Clever new tax revolution strategy to make government voluntary. That's on Activist Post. Inexperienced British Airways boss who oversaw cost-cutting drive is blamed for IT meltdown, which could cost £150 million. Thousands of passengers forced to queue outside Heathrow and Gatwick as airline struggles to clear backlog. Deceitful lies, fear, terrorism, and mass surveillance, party politics in the UK. New revelations shed light on extent of NSA spying under Obama. That's on Activist Post. And from the Gateway Pundit, Fox News down 500,000 primetime viewers since firing top host Bill O'Reilly. Again, Fox News is dropping like a hot rock. I will not listen to others. Duterte continues with martial law over ISIS battle. Manchester bomber may have been groomed by UK intelligence. North Korea launch next-generation missile as Kim Jong-un prepares for war. That's on the Daily Star. Chicago population shrinks most of any city in U.S. Germany to fine parents $3,000 if they fail to vaccinate their kids. Russians vow to sue BuzzFeed into bankruptcy over fake dossier. Everything is in play. Donald Trump planning major overhaul of White House team as he grows increasingly frustrated with its inability to control Russian crisis. In Ramadan massacre, Egyptian Christians killed for refusing to renounce their faith in Jesus. It's on Breitbart. More power to them. It's exactly what you should do as a Christian. FEMA, COINTELPRO, King Alfred Plan, and the Coming Future of America, Martial Law. That's on Prepper Fortress. And from Dave Hodges of the Common Sense Show, fanning the racist flames of a coming civil war. Brave New World, 3D printed ovaries produce healthy offspring. We have been able to print human-scale constructs that, when implanted in experimental models, developed a system of nerves and blood vessels and were functional. That's on Natural News. Now, you want to tell me that when they take someone's DNA or frozen tissue like a head, a brain, or whatever, like from a Rockefeller or from a Zbigniew Brzezinski, that they can't create a new version of that person eventually? Now, this is coming out now. Imagine what they actually have. Because this information, when they put it in the news, is usually decades old. So if that's the case, they already have the technology to bring back people like Rockefeller and Brzezinski. All they need is the DNA, and they can create the vessels to import the DNA into and recreate those same beings. Now, does that mean that their very soul will be the same? No. But their bodies and their DNA will be. But those vessels will then be open to be inhabited by other entities such as demons. So it will be a demon with the DNA, the body construct of a Rockefeller or a Brzezinski, which makes them even more evil this time around than they were the first time. I know it's a little hard to follow. It's a little esoteric, but it is possible. Earthquake early warning around the world. West Coast on seismic alert. Mysterious wave anomaly coming from Antarctica. That's on Prepper Fortress. Domestic enemies under James Clapper destroyed the credibility of the U.S. intelligence community. The U.S. surveillance state unmasked. Steve says all privacy went into the crapper with Clapper. Our freedoms flushed. That's on aim4truth.org. The most important facts to consider when choosing your survival retreat location. That's on Survival Dan 101. This is the Dem blackmail story you're not going to see on CNN. The New World Order is not paranoia, it's a reality, a definable and quantifiable political movement. When it comes to matters of survival and principle, it's a far better thing to be crazy and right than sane, quote, and wrong. That's on concerneduspatriots.com. 5 things you need to know before taking an at-home genetic test. Genetic testing is now available for over 2,000 conditions from over 500 different laboratories, according to the National Institutes of Health. Catholic priest Petrus Romanus, and a hidden power at the Vatican, giving rise to the Antichrist of prophecy, will force each of us, like the angels, to decide whether we join the League of Lucifer or Christ. Well, I know which side I'm on. How about you? That's on Skywatch TV. Interviews. Study finds belief in aliens and religious belief share a similar psychological motivation. The study found these paranormal beliefs about aliens were at least partially motivated by the need for meaning. That's on psypost.org. Europe fights back with candles and teddy bears. That's on the Gatestone Institute. Why leftists submit to terror, behavioral scientist Gad Saad explains how leftists have contracted ostrich parasitic syndrome, the most dangerous mental virus in the world. I like that. I'll have to remember that one. Ostrich parasitic syndrome. They like to stick their heads in the sand. Retired 4-star general's dire warning to America should awaken millions. What does he know that we don't know? That's on All News Pipeline. We still know very little about how AI thinks. Steve says in an age of spiritual machines, even the most remote tribes in the jungle know the difference between good spirits and evil spirits. Transhumanists are about to find out. That's on Futurism.com. John Podesta in a frenzy converting $40 billion of Clinton Foundation assets into gold, diamonds, and artwork. That's on fellowshipoftheminds.com. Map shows how 8 million Americans or more might have to be evacuated in this worst-case scenario. Scientists warn nuclear nightmare worse than Fukushima may be ahead. That's on All News Pipeline. Gary Heavin will be on with Dave Hodges in the second hour tonight on Dave's radio program. Gary and Dave will be discussing the Seth Rich murder and the extreme attempts to cover it up. That's an important interview to listen to. Go to thecommonsenseshow.com for more information. Okay, that's it for today's Diamond Report. Thanks for listening and watching. I appreciate all the support and the nice comments that I've had. And I'll see you tomorrow.